Okay. Hey, it's me, Maggie J. Today with a very late review of the 5th episode of Reservation Dogs called Come and Get Your Love. It took me extra long to record the stand-ups for this video and the next one because life doesn't send ahead memos that'll let you know that 3 of your vehicles are going to crap out this week and ruin your entire schedule. So thank you for checking back to keep up with my channel. I hope these videos don't also take another week to post. If you are in the mood for much faster videos regarding this subject and, other film and television related reviews, check out my friend Justin's channel. It is called Justin Talks Film, and he does like instant response videos to things that he watches that are a lot less spoilerific than my reviews. I like his content because he's not always trying to make a joke like some other channels are. He finds the more emotional elements and discusses some of the deeper rooted character undercurrents that are going on. It's a nice contrast from some of the other review channels that are just trying to find the faults and suggest what could have been done differently. I put a link to his channel in the description, and he has a review video for every single episode of Reservation Dogs and various other reviews about things that he's kind of got me interested in watching too. So give him some clicks. Now, about this episode. It is called Come and Get Your Love, like the song by Redbone. The all-indigenous band, or whatever Big said about them. He might be their biggest fan. We start off with a glance into the past, 1984 to be exact, where we see a young hotshot bebopping on down the road, having himself a good old time, singing Midnight Rider just as loud as he possibly can. He's speeding and smoking a joint, but he locks it up pretty quickly when he sees a lady hitchhiker. He does a U-E and offers her a ride. She's going a bit of a ways, but he assures her his chick magnet will get her to wherever it is that she wants to go. She grabs something out of her purse, a beaded deer antler that looks more like a weapon, then climbs into the car. As the camera pans downward, we can see there are no feet at the end of her legs. Those are hooves, baby, because this is the Deer Lady. I am unfamiliar with the Deer Lady legend, so I did a little Googling, and Wikipedia says the Deer Lady is a protector who lures men who mistreat women and children. Like a furry-hoofed siren. Once she finds a man deserving of her kind of punishment, she sets her trap, like hitchhiking, so she can get them alone. And then they are never seen again. Big happened to witness the Deer Lady getting picked up by this hotshot back in 1984. Then we flash to the present where Big appears to be waking up in his cruiser, and Cheese is standing in the front with a little notepad. He signed up for a ride-along, but was hoping that Officer Chubbs would be the one he got paired up with. But Chubbs called in sick that day, so Cheese is stuck with Big in his cruiser that's seen better days. Cheese tries to turn on the radio in the car, but Big says it doesn't work. Then the cop radio thing falls down, triggering Big to make excuses for his old war pony, Redbone. He says he's going to call his next cruiser Redbone 2. He has to explain that Redbone is an all-indigenous band that was big way back before Cheese's day. It's the only tape that he plays, but he can't play it right now because the radio's broken. So he sings Come and Get Your Love himself, but Cheese still doesn't recognize it. They make a stop in town to check on a guy who's fallen asleep on a bench in front of the theater. Turns out, it's Big's cousin Bucky. Bucky is a wiry kind of guy. He lives down the road a little bit with a white woman, but they might be in the midst of a fight. Bucky doesn't like to give too many details, nor be questioned too much, nor be treated like a charity case. He said he was just sitting there reading a book on string theory that appears to have been stolen while he was sleeping. This book does turn up later, but I won't tell you where, and then you can just decide for yourself whether synchronicity is a law of the universe or if this is just a crazy coincidence. Anyway, Bucky refuses Big's offer to take him to lunch and tries to take the attention off of him by talking to Cheese. Cheese introduces himself and his pronouns, which Bucky responds to positively which makes me happy. Not everyone is so accepting of new trends and such, and older generations are definitely not falling all over themselves to trying to get hip with the new vernacular. So it's nice to see that Cheese just being himself is not sparking off the apocalypse or something. Bucky eventually gets on his way, but before Big and Cheese can get back into their patrol car, a police SUV with 2 city cops rolls by and stops to talk shit to Big about having an old grandma car, about him not being a good officer, about how Cheese has nothing to learn from this guy. The usual, I'm sure. Not really sure why there are city cops mingling with tribal cops, so perhaps Big is out of his jurisdiction, or vice versa. Whatever. These 2 cops are the epitome of what is wrong with police in general. No respect, no honor, no support for their other Leos. Just assholes with badges. Big tells Cheese they're the reasons why he needs to be a light horseman, because otherwise he'll wind up like them. At the end of the first episode, we saw Big poking around in a football field with a bunch of catfish parts laying around. He takes Cheese there and tells him about the catfish heads that were there, and then they were gone a couple days later. But then, like a week later, they were back again. And Big thinks that it was the work of a Bigfoot, or some other spirit that leaves huge footprints and doesn't want to be seen. But Cheese is pretty skeptical. Cheese asks Big why he wanted to be a light horseman, but Big hasn't ever told anyone that story, and he's not about to start now. Next question. Cheese asks what Big does as a light horseman. Hunt bad guys, he says. Drug addicts are the worst, but sometimes supernatural shit happens too. Big tells Cheese a story about a supernatural experience that he had. I'm assuming that we're going back to around 1984. After Big first saw the deer lady, his grandmother has sent him to the store with $1 to buy a pack of cigarettes, so I guarantee this was before 1995. All the way to the store, Big's stomach is bothering him, so when he gets there, he needs to have a little sit down in the bathroom before he can decide what to buy with the change from buying the cigarettes. Some scumbags pull up in front of the store with ski masks on and try to rob the place. They rush in and knock out the store owner with one of their guns. Then they tell the woman at the back of the store to freeze and not turn around. She listens for a moment, but then Big starts yelling from the bathroom about not having any toilet paper, which distracts the robbers from the mission at hand. The woman in the back of the store turns around and it's the deer lady. She quickly closes the gap between these 2 robbers, and a moment later, Big hears footsteps approaching, then sees a pair of deer hooves and wide flared pants standing in front of the stall that he's in. And they've brought him a roll of toilet paper. There's a million things running through his mind right now, but he's still got to wipe. So he takes the roll of paper, and by the time he gets back out into the main place, the store owner, the store clerk, is just waking up from being knocked out, and the 2 robbers are bleeding out on the floor, and the woman is gone. Back in today's time, Big gets a call from dispatch about something going on over at Ray Ray's house. She couldn't really figure out what he was on about, but Big just needs to get over there. Once he and Cheese get to Ray Ray's, they find out that someone has been putting all kind of weird copper figurines and statues all over the place. They're on people's porches and in their cars and hanging from the eaves like wind chimes. Some lady even put one around her neck. There's really a whole bunch of these figures, so they go about collecting as many as they can find. Ray Ray accompanies them while they search, continuously trying to relight his joint, even though Big keeps telling him to put it out. Back in the patrol car, Big and Cheese are notified about a light blue pickup that's been stolen. But the next action that they take is to pull over White Steve and the rest of the Indian Mafia for an out taillight. As they hawk down these potential criminals, Cheese has to hold the mic of the car's PA system up to Big's phone that is playing the sound of a siren because the siren on the car is broken, which is a whole statement about the condition of tribal equipment all on its own. Once they've got the Indian Mafia pulled over, Big tells them their car matches the description of one being used to steal street signs, so he's going to have to search it. Meanwhile, Cheese is doing the best he can to intimidate these guys into leaving the dogs alone. He is not effective at all. Big finds a paintball gun in their truck, but it's not illegal, and there's no street signs or anything else that they can ticket these guys with. So Cheese gives them a traditional German send-off. and him and Big head on down the road. I love the look of these bandanas that a lot of these characters wear. I don't know if this is just the style for Oklahoma or if they're trying to keep reminding us that these people are gangsters. Either or, it's totally cute. Their next up is the scrapyard. I assume this is Cheese's idea since he's leading this little interrogation session of Kenny with the good choker, who is not happy to see tribal police and is trying to explain why Cheese seems to know so much about what goes on in this scrapyard, claiming Cheese is like a nephew and that he wants no lies between them. Kenny seems relieved when Big asks if he knows anything about the copper sculptures, because he doesn't. Then Kylo Ren pipes in and can't stop volunteering information that Kenny doesn't think Big needs to know. But Big doesn't dig any deeper into that mess. Pick your battles is what I assume he's trying to do, so he and Cheese make their exit. Kenny says, "Walk in beauty, my friends," which is a phrase I love so fucking much. It's perfect. But it would be too much of a ripoff, right? I can't take that. If I were a real fangirl, I wouldn't even question it. And I'm trying to be authentic here, so fangirling would be exactly what I would want to do. Speaking of, how about some more fangirling? Remember when Kenny told Elora that her name was the baby's name from, why is there a bug in here? Ugh, I am indoors, sir. You had your chance weeks ago. Remember when Kenny said that Elora Danan's name was from the movie Willow? Well, the Reservation Dogs Twitter account shared a photo of this man with his exceptional choker, and I noticed that the name of his salvage yard, is called Burgle Cuts, which I commented on not being a criminal organization at all. And then someone else reminded me Burgle Cuts is the name of a character in Willow. So it seems like Kenny might be a little obsessed, or this is just another example of the deep and complex character development unfolding throughout this series. Whatever is happening here, I love it. While having lunch, Big and Cheese see the stolen blue pickup truck crossing an intersection, so they start to give chase. Turns out to be a very low-speed chase where nothing expected happens at all because the driver is using their turn signals and stopping at the stop signs and such. P.S. I love the pursuit music here. It reminds me of Beverly Hills Cop, or maybe another one of those cop movies from the 80s. I'm not sure. Eventually, Big says, "That looks like Bucky." And it is him! Bucky says, "Fink," which is another word I really want to steal. And then he pulls over. He immediately moves from the driver to the passenger seat, like nobody would be suspicious that there was no driver in this truck. Big makes him get out and explain why there's so much copper in the back of this truck that's been reported stolen. Turns out Bucky is the one who's been making all these copper statues all over, thinking that he can use the antimicrobial and medicinal properties to help people be healthier. So he thought he would get people interested with a little bit of mystery, and then bam, offer to sell them even more statues, or rings, or bracelets, or headbands to keep their health up. Who wouldn't buy good-looking statues that improved your health? If not for the medicinal properties, at least because these are some high quality crafted items. Bucky's a bit of a marketing genius with this idea. One of y'all crafters out there better get on it. Just don't steal the copper, please. Big lets Bucky go, telling him to get the truck back to its owners, Bucky's neighbor ladies, and stop leaving these statues all over people's porches because he's freaking them the fuck out. Later, when Cheese asks why Big didn't arrest Bucky, Big says it's because he's after bad people. Bucky may not always make good decisions, but he's not a bad guy, which I think is the most important lesson that Cheese has learned all day. Being a cop is not necessarily about punishing people who do wrong. It's about protecting people from those who have bad intentions. There's a lot of nuance that goes along with deciding if someone is bad or just wrong, and Big tells Cheese that's when he's got to use his detective skills to know the difference. Finally, Big says he's going to tell Cheese why he became a light horseman, but he can't tell no one. Cheese admits, "I'll probably tell my friends," but Big is okay with that. He tells a story of when he was young, at his grandmother's funeral, when the dear lady spoke to him. Initially, he's scared because he thinks she just kills all boys, but she explains that she only kills bad men, men who mistreat women and children. But he's a good boy, so he's got nothing to worry about from her, as long as he stays that way. And so he does. Her speech is much better than this description. Cheese compares Big's story to Batman's origin story, except it's nothing like Batman's origin story, and Big doesn't really appreciate that. Cheese starts messing with the radio again, and after some fiddling and a good whack on the dash, the tape deck fires up and starts playing Come and Get Your Love by Redbone. Big goads Cheese into singing along, and he kind of catches on during the chorus. Big reaches over to pat Cheese on the chest, and he kind of tickles him and makes him laugh for real, and it is so friggin' adorable. We get one more glimpse at the Deer Lady getting into a new Corvette, which makes me wonder if it was harder for her to get rides when all the leg coverings that you could buy were skinny jeans and leggings. But she's kind of siren-like, so that probably doesn't matter. Anyway, we get to watch the old Redbone music video for this song as the credits roll, which probably made your auntie very happy. And that is the end of the episode. This was another great peek into Native life and culture, and I am so glad that this show was picked up for a second season. A humongous congratulations to everybody involved in this. You definitely deserve a second season, and I'm so proud of y'all. I have to admit, I'm a little bit obsessed with the Deer Lady legend, and I have a fink load of questions. Wikipedia gave me a generalization, but I know that this just can't be enough because 1, it's Wikipedia, and 2, they said that this was part of Iroquois lore and legend, but as a Seneca girl, I just have never heard of this. So if you can link a video or a story about her from a more direct source, that would be awesome. Also, she's being played by Ganadia Horn, one of my favorite Indigenous people to see on screen. I try not to focus on the actors' roles and histories outside of the production that we're talking about, but I really enjoy her in every single thing that I've ever seen her in. She's definitely everybody's auntie by now. She might be contractually obligated to appear in every single Native-centric production that gets green-lighted out there because she is almost everywhere that Natives are mentioned, and I love to see her. The Deer Lady had a large influence on young Big, turning him into the man that he is today. I really wish that he was able to garner more respect from the people of his community, because while he comes off as somebody who takes his job very seriously, he also seems like somebody who doesn't want to complicate your life just for petty reasons. If Big was an asshole and ticketed everyone and nobody got away with anything, fine, you will do all you want to do to make his life complicated. But what has this gentle soul done for so many that he protects and serves to think that it's okay to just flip him off and keep trying to smoke joints around him and tell him he's a useless officer? That may just be how Natives treat authority. I am not dense to that logic. Overall, I give this episode 4 stars. I really appreciated the character exposition of Big and Cheese and being introduced to the Deer Lady. Obviously, Cheese wanted nothing to do with Big at the beginning of this episode, but I have a little hope that they'll get along better after this. Cheese wanting to become a detective was not really something I was expecting. I thought the Res Dogs were the best thieves in town. I went back and watched the first couple episodes again to try and figure out if it had ever been discussed that they're not going to do crimes anymore. But the closest they came was at the end of episode 1 when Bear says, "We should not be criminals, we should be vigilantes." So I'm not sure if they've put their money-making crimes on hold or if we're just not being shown them doing that. But if they're not making money, then they're not going to California. And that seems like something that Alora's going to have a big problem with. But her episode is coming up, and we've got one more after that, I'm pretty sure. So maybe it'll come full circle. I'm finding a lot of things I complain about in one episode. Another 1 or 2 episodes later, it is all cleared up, and I guess that's just me being super impatient and wanting to have something to talk about in these reviews. Probably why reviews are best done at the end of the whole series, but we just won't worry about that right now, huh? That is all that I have to say about this. I hope you've enjoyed this explanation. If you'd like to see more videos about other TV shows like this, feel free to subscribe. Walk in beauty, my friend. Still not sure if I want to adopt that as my sign-off or if it's more just mocking sacredness. I still really, really like the line, but y'all stay safe out there.